We now continue into 2 Corinthians chapter 10, where Shaul confronts fleshly measurements of authority, tears down proud imaginations, and insists true boasting must be governed not by self-condemnation, but by the measure of approval of Yehovah. This chapter contains explicit Tanakh citations, Jeremiah 9, verse 23, meek appeal to fleshly accusations to answered, to strongholds targeted, to thoughts captured, to measures rejected, to boasting humbled. We do not boast in the flesh, we tear down strongholds in Messiah. Yehovah, strip us of every boast that rises from the flesh. Teach us to fight with weapons that are mighty through you. Bring every thought into obedience to Messiah. Yehovah Gi Boor. Yehovah El Gi Boor. The mighty God whose power tears down strongholds and subdues every proud thing against his truth. Yehovah El Gibor. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Holy, holy, holy. Please fill me and lead me and cover me and stir me and speak through me with your Ruach HaKodesh, your Holy Spirit, your set-apart breath, that I may speak your written words with boldness and humility to those who listen. I ask all these things in Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ, the Messiah, the Anointed, the Aleph and Tav's name. Amen. We'll start with the Shema. Listen and obey. Children of Yehovah, pay careful attention and respond. Yehovah is our power and authority. Yehovah works in unity, echad, with himself, and you shall act upon your love, ahava, to Yehovah with your power and authority, with your thoughts and mind, with your entire body, and with all the muchness that you have. Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey. Hen, behold, now, behold. 2 Corinthians chapter 10. Now I myself, Shaul, making an appeal to you with the meekness and forbearance that come from the Messiah. I who am considered timid when face to face with you, but intimidating from a distance. But I beg you not to force me to be intimidating when I am with you, as I expect to be towards some who regard us as living a worldly way. For although we do live in the world, we do not wage war in a worldly way, because the weapons we use to wage war are not worldly. On the contrary, they have God's power for demolishing strongholds. We demolish arguments and every arrogance that raises itself up against the knowledge of God. We take every thought captive and make it obey the Messiah. And when we have become completely obedient, then we'll be ready to punish every act of disobedience. You are looking at the surface of things. If anyone is convinced that he belongs to the Messiah, he should remind himself that we belong to the Messiah as much as he does. For even if I boast a little too much about the authority of the Master has given us, authority to build you up, not to tear you down, I am not ashamed. My object is not to seem as if I were trying to frighten you with these letters. Someone says, his letters are weighty and powerful. But when he appears in person, he is weak, and as a speaker, he is nothing. Such a person should realize that what we say in our letters when absent, we will do when present. We don't dare class or compare ourselves with some of the people who advertise themselves in measuring themselves against each other and comparing themselves with each other. They are simply stupid. We will not boast about what lies outside the area of work which God has given us. Rather, we will boast within our assigned area, and that area does reach as far as you. We are not overextending or boasting as if we had not reached as far as you. For we did not come all the way to you with the good news of the Messiah. We do not boast about the area in which the others labor. But our hope is that as your trust grows, we will be magnified in your midst in relation to our own area of work, so that we can go on to do even more, namely, to proclaim the good news in regions beyond you. Our hope is not to boast about the work already done by someone else. So let anyone who wants to boast about Yehovah, because it is not the one who recommends himself who is worthy of approval, but the one whom the master recommends. What is the Hebrew word that encapsulates this chapter? Melchama, warfare. This chapter presents ministry as both real battle, but one fought with divine power rather than fleshly force. Jeremiah 9, verse 23, Jeremiah's burden stands directly behind the chapter. Man must not glory in his own resources, stature, or perceived strength. Shaul applies that some prophetic edge to apostolic conflict. The Corinthians are being tempted to judge by visible force, eloquence, and self-referential comparisons. Shaul refuses that battlefield altogether. His war is not of the flesh, and therefore his boasting cannot be either. What matters is what Yehovah's measure, empowers, and approves. Chapter flow. Shaul begins by appealing personally through the meekness and gentleness of Messiah, not by raw assertion of force. He mentions that some perceive him as a humble when present, but bold when absent, showing that his opponents are reading authority through fleshly categories. He asks that he not be forced to display the kind of severity that he is prepared to use against those who think he walks according to the flesh. Shaul then states the central warfare principle. Though they walk in the flesh as mortal men, they do not wage war according to the flesh. Their weapons are not fleshly, but divinely powerful for the demolition of strongholds. He defines those strongholds as arguments, lofty things raised against the knowledge of God, and thoughts that must be taken captive into obedience to Messiah. He also speaks of readiness to punish disobedience once the Corinthians' obedience is complete, showing that this warfare has real moral seriousness. He then challenges the surface level judgment. If anyone is confident he belongs to Messiah, he should remember that Shaul belongs to Messiah just as surely. Shaul says he must boast somewhere more boldly about the authority of the Messiah gave him, but that authority was given for building up, not tearing down the Corinthians. He does not want to seem as though he is frightening them merely by letters. His critics say his letters are weighty and strong, but his bodily presence is weak and his speech contemptible. Shaul answers that what he says by letter when absent, he will also prove in action when present. He then refuses the foolish game of self-condemnation through mutual comparison. Those who measure themselves by themselves and compare themselves by themselves are without understanding. By contrast, Shaul will not boast beyond proper measure, but only within the field God has assigned him, a field that includes Corinth. He is not overextending himself as if he had not reached them, because he did in fact come as far as Corinth with the good news of Messiah. He does not boast in another man's labors beyond measure, but hopes that as the Corinthians' faith grows, his field of work among them will be enlarged further. This would enable him to proclaim the good news in regions beyond them without boasting in work already done in another man's field. Then comes the governing principle of the chapter. The one who boasts must boast in the Messiah, in the Master. The one who commends himself is not approved, but the one whom the Master commends. Weapons raised to strongholds shattered, to comparisons exposed, to true boasting redirected to Yehovah. Core theme. Shaul's burden in this chapter is to expose the difference between fleshly force and true spiritual authority. The Corinthians have been influenced by men who judge by presence, polish, volume, and self-promoting comparison. Shaul rejects that entire standard. He does not deny conflict, he intensifies it. But the conflict he names is not won by fleshly swagger. It is fought with divine weapons that tear down invisible fortresses in the mind and heart. That means the battlefield is deeper than appearances. Arguments, proud, imaginations, and wandering thoughts are the real target. Shaul is not interested in merely winning an outward contest of personalities. He is aiming at obedience to Messiah. That is why his authority is for building up, not for vanity-driven domination. Even severity, if required, belongs to a restorative aim rather than a fleshly one. The chapter ends by destroying self commendation at the root. Men love to measure themselves against one another because it creates a realm they can control. Shaul refuses it. The only field that matters is the one God assigns. The only boasting that survives is boasting in the Master. And the only commendation that finally matters is the one that comes to Him. How can we learn to love Yehovah with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength? We can love Yehovah by refusing fleshly boasting and seeking His commendation above visible human approval. Love Yehovah by bringing every proud thought and inner argument into obedience to Messiah. Love Yehovah by fighting spiritual battles with divine weapons rather than manipulative force or self-exalting strength. How can we learn to love our neighbors as we love ourselves and as Yeshua loves us? Use authority to build up rather than crush, embarrass, or dominate others. Refuse comparison culture that makes another person your measure instead of Yehovah's call. Help others discern the difference between outward impressiveness and true spiritual substance. How can we learn to bear one another's burdens? Stand with one another in the battle against destructive thoughts, proud arguments, and spiritual strongholds. Help one another identify where fleshly measurements has replaced divine measure. Strengthen each other to seek the Master's approval even when human voices misread weakness as failure. What are the top 3 fruits of the Spirit found in this chapter? 1. Discernment, binah. The chapter teaches us to distinguish fleshly appearance from true spiritual authority and divine measure. 2. Humility, anava. Shaul rejects self-condemnation. Shaul rejects self-commendation, comparison, and boastful self-measuring, pressing all glory back toward the Messiah. 3. Strength, givurah. The chapter presents real strength as divine power that tears down strongholds and captures thoughts for Messiah. What is the mitzvah response? Torah-based, Deuteronomy 6 verse 5. You are to love Yehovah your God with all your heart, with all your being, and with all your resources. Command. We will tear down proud strongholds, reject fleshly boasting, and seek only the Master's approval. Hebrew declaration. Lo nit halal. Bahasar. Ki im. Ba'adan. Li vodo. Kol. Machashiavav. Nishbi. Li mishmaat. Ha Mashiach. Bi givurat. Elohim na haros. Miv safrim. Vi nibani. Ba emet. We will not boast in the flesh, but in the Master alone. Every thought will be taken captive to the obedience of Messiah. By the power of God, we will tear down strongholds and build up in truth. What is the one-sentence summary? Tear down strongholds, boast only in the Master's approval. Now, having read the chapter and going over it, here are some heart-piercing questions. Where am I still measuring myself by others instead of by Yehovah's assignment? Another. What arguments or proud thoughts in me still resist obedience to Messiah? Another. Do I confuse visible impressiveness with real spiritual authority? Another. How do I tend to fight? Through fleshly pressure or through divine truth and power? Another. Am I seeking to build others up or only prove myself right or strong? Another. What would it mean today to boast only in the Master and not in my own measure? Lastly, which stronghold in my thinking most needs to be brought down before Yehovah now? We'll end with the Aaronic blessing using the name. Yehovah will kneel before you presenting gifts, and he will guard you with a hedge of protection. Yehovah will illuminate the wholeness of his being toward your bringing order, and he'll provide you with love, sustenance, and friendship. Yehovah will lift up the wholeness of his being and look upon you set in place all you need to be whole and complete. Shalom, shalom.